Good morning, everybody, and rise and shine. It's morning coffee time with me, Jen Snow. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Snow. I'm your clinical hypnotherapist, Reiki Master, inner soul journey regressionist coach. And it's Friday. Hello, Diane. How are you? Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Recap Friday, like the Dear Diary moment. So I was a little late this morning. I had a bit of a chaotic week. Had to come back down to the coast, and so my horse is injured and got a rock stuck in his hoof where he blew his abscess last week. So that was like, I want to talk about this because I think this is really important. A lot of us don't give ourselves the credit when it comes connecting into our inner senses and our inner intuitive side of us. Because, yes, I know I work with animals all the time. I work with people. My mediumship is a part of what I do. And so maybe, for me, it is second nature, but it's not second nature because I denied this part of myself for years. I denied it. I wanted nothing. Oh, it's okay. You know, I was actually with my vet last night, and she made this comment, and you know what? My vet is really amazing. She gives me the leeway to do what I do intuitively and in my knowingness, and she never dismisses it. Now, she doesn't always agree with it, but she never dismisses it. And that's a big, when you're in my shoes, that's a big win because when she doesn't disagree with me and we kind of are on the same page, it's really cool to work with somebody in the medical field that is open to hearing what you have to say or what you feel, what you sense about not just my animal, but I have been brought in with other animals and at her request to, when they get stumped and to offer any insight or feeling that I get. But she was laughing. She's like, you just need to stop having a conversation with him about moving him because every time I do this, he's like, oh, I'm injured. I can't go. So I'm pretty sure he's telling me that he doesn't want to go. He likes being here with his herd. And so I'm just going to lay off on that conversation and see how things go. Because last time I was like, fine, we don't need to move. The next morning, totally fine. So maybe I'm not listening to him. It's pretty much the message that I'm giving myself as I'm talking here. But when it comes to that mediumship side of yourself, however you work, like if you rely on your gut feelings or you just get the knowingness or you hear the message in your head, you see it in your dreams, your images, you feel it through the emotions, however you tangibly interpret your inner medium, your inner connection to the cosmic inner and higher self of you, pay attention to it. Because, like I said, yes, I do this for a living. Yes, I've done this all my life. But there was a large part of my life that I spent hiding who I was. Because who I was in that time frame of the world didn't fit in. And that was a very lonely time when if I didn't curve my abilities, because when I was little, I mean, I can basically up until the age of 9, I was just whether you were human, you were animal, whether you were spirit or vibration, I was just blah, blah, blah. And I remember very clearly people always, oh, Jen's telling her stories again. I wasn't telling stories. I was telling you what the dead person next to you is wanted you to know, or what that soul that was trapped needed to know, share so that they could move on, or what that animal needed from their person, their companion or their trainer, or it was just very like you and I having a conversation just back and forth. And it was all day long. It was all night long, and didn't sleep very much as a kid, or I slept with the lights on because I've always felt with the lights on it kept the spirit at bay. Not sure that actually works, but in my little childlike brain, that was my lights on, you can't come in. I can't, it didn't scare me to wake up to them. And yeah, because that used to happen quite a bit. We've talked about this before, so I will recap it really quickly. But I used to wake up with souls staring at me all the time, and I was, not knowing what was happening most of the time at night. I get scared. I'd yell. My dad would come in. Of course, he could not see them, so that's okay. He just wasn't in tune at the time. And back then, I don't think, I think it was a lot harder to be in tune because the energy of Mother Earth was very dense and it was very different. Coffee. And so, I got home. I was coming down to surprise a friend of mine. It's her birthday. I didn't tell anybody except for her husband that I was coming, my parents. So everybody kind of kept that hush hush. And my plan was to turn around after today and go home. I get here, I hit the property. I'm like, yeah, no. So I go up and give my mom a hug and say hi to my parents. And I'm like, yeah, I got to go to the barn. Something's up. So I walk out to the barn and I march out there and I'm like, that just like, oh man, like, please be wrong. I actually like spend more time asking myself to be wrong when I don't want to be right. And I walk out and I look at him and he's not moving and he's just standing there. And most people would just think he's standing there. And I'm like, you're lame, in the same foot as you were last week. So I march out there with the halter and I put it on and I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe mommy is over like protective and just in her head. No, not as bad as the abscess, which I was really surprised because it actually blew in 3 days, which is not normal for him at all. Like I said, I just was like, fine, you can stay. Literally less than 12 hours, abscess blown. And I'm like, oh. And when you like look and I can't find a soft spot, I'm like, oh, I did all my checking, I can't find a pulse. I'm like, wow, maybe this is something else. And I kind of had that feeling in the back of my head, but couldn't pinpoint to something else. So I called my farrier, and he's always my first line of the defense. My farrier is amazing. He comes out and he's like, yeah, well, if you had an abscess, and he's looking, and next thing I hear this crunching, and I'm like, what is that? And it happens he has a rock in his foot in the soft spot where the abscess blew. He got a rock in there, 2 actually. And so we had to dig those out. So he's still on stall rest, but we know why, and he should be improving. And when I go this morning to soak and wrap it again, hopefully he'll be sound. And we're all just on that protective wrapping space. So to keep it so that nothing else kind of gets in there infection wise and it can heal itself. But yeah, so now I'm going to be here for a couple extra days. And that has been my week of, and I talked about this the other day, like this last month has really challenged my connection to flow in the sense of giving me, and fortunately, because of the work I've done with myself, I've been able to stand in this chaos of what's happening in the family and friend emergencies and just kind of step back and been in that observation, witness, response space, not the reaction space. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't had emotions because I have a lot of emotions around the events that have happened in this past month. But my emotions are not dictating me. I'm allowing myself to feel them, and the importance of feeling them is quite profound, because when we get into a place of fighting, we get in a place of burying, and maybe you don't have time in the moment that you need to feel them. And that's okay. I'm not saying that, if you're in the, you're somewhere and you're like, I can't do this right now, taking a moment but making sure in the same time frame that you give yourself the opportunity, your 15 minutes, to get it all out, so that the heaviness and the intensity and the frequency and vibration of those deep, hard emotions don't get buried in your cellular makeup, in your physical body, and your mental, emotional body. Because there is a lot going on these days. I think there's more coming. But I also think there's a lot of shifts happening that are kind of surfacing everything, so that those of us who have buried stuff, and I'm going to talk about something that I definitely am unconsciously aware of, and I've kind of left it in that conscious space of like, not yet. Where if I think back and I really sit back and I think about it, I can pinpoint a couple conversations where I've had with myself, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get there. And I still haven't gotten there. So we even have moments where we're not ready to process something, or we're not ready to move and shift something yet, because it's not the divine timing of it. And but when that divine timing comes up, it's taking the time to pay attention to that and acknowledge that, and then take the moment of working through. And I always find with divine timing, it's a bit of a like, boom, hi, I'm here, pay attention to me, versus the soft settle. The soft settle I always find is like that preparation that, hey, when you hear the boom, hi, I'm here, it's not as like scary or like blindsiding when we pay attention to the soft and subtle sides. And even then, if you are like, hey, you know what, I'm going to do this now so it doesn't have a boom, hey, I'm here moment, that's perfect. And it's perfect if you don't. It's when you're ready. So yeah, like letting yourself have a time frame, like, okay, I'm gonna give myself my 15 minutes. I'm gonna play all my sad songs. I'm gonna think about all the things that are upsetting me, and I'm just gonna wail it out. And then I'm gonna put a timer on. When that timer's done, here we go. And that stops those emotions from the day being buried deep, where you are ignoring or avoiding them, and then they can begin to fester. They begin to fester, and they fester on that vibrational level first. And for anybody who's done any hypnotherapy with me on my one-on-one classes, in our first session, I show you how to take that vibrational energy, how to invite it to from a thought into your physical reality in that space of creation. And that is always a part of the first session. And that way, it's, in my opinion, in my belief system, that is the awakening of how powerful you truly are, and how when you take the focus that you have and your ability to connect with vibration and thought and hold the space without interruption or influence of taking vibration thought and opening the door and the avenue for it to materialize tangibly in this physical reality. And when we learn that and we understand that and we get into a place of knowing this, it is really profound how these moments of intangible power can become a part of our tangible presence. And our tangible presence is our physical world. So that includes our physical body. And when we bury, and I did it, guys. So you know what? I am preaching from a place of experience. When we bury those things deep within us, and time passes where we don't take a moment to acknowledge, understand, flow through, the transform, or consciously can become aware, they have to have an expression of outlet. That outlet, that energy becomes how the vibration then seeps into the way we perceive the world around us, the way we feel the world around us, the way we feel the world feels us, and the feelings come into play. And those feelings really can keep us in the past or in the future, or they can help us be present. And we can feel in the present, and we can allow ourselves to go through the process of feeling without carrying into the next moment, allowing us to have that moment. And that's kind of like the 15 minutes. There's your moment. You're in the moment right there. You're feeling everything. You're going through everything, even though those emotions come from what's happened or what will happen. You're in that moment with them, and then they're released, and you move through, and you kind of let it roll off. And it lightens the load of what vibration and frequency you're harboring, you're hosting, you're bearing, you're carrying. Everybody talks about getting rid of the luggage. Well, think about the vibration of frequency of your past or future being like luggage that you carry into every moment. Future is undetermined, and the past is something that has happened. And the power that we have is that we can change how we carry our past, how our past carries us, how we interact with those past emotions, how those past emotions shift our perception, the lens that we see through, that we react through, that we respond through in our daily moment, our daily timeline. And that doesn't mean the past won't creep up and you won't have a moment. But there's a difference between living in your past and bringing your past living in your present, which is then creating your future. So we talk about these cycles and these loops that we get into, and we're like, nothing ever changes. It's always the same old thing. It's this constant chaos, this constant, you know, I'm constantly having a bad day. Well, that's because that original bad day has infiltrated the emotional part of you, which is then a big, huge component of the part of you that is creating in the physical reality. And if your emotional and vibrational state is stuck somewhere else, and that's where you're creating from, that's what's going to influence both the conscious and subconscious that are the tangible, those tangible components that we work through in this physical reality, this human experience. And it's going to constantly be looping that same theme, that same story into every moment that you experience, whether it's the same or not. That is the lens that we are seeing through, and that is the lens that we are creating through. And I'm not saying it's bad to have past experiences. We all have past experiences. We all have opportunities to learn something, to take something, and those past experiences can be epically horrible. They can. Some of them can be epically wonderful, and then some of them can be quite boring, and everything in between. But one of the things that has helped me process past events is, what did I learn from this? Now, what you learn isn't always like great. Sometimes it's like what not to wear. And when you can acknowledge those little things, that actually helps unwind the lens that you work through. Because when the lesson has become learned, the purpose of the past event has been completed, that past event can then now be like put into the filing cabinet of inactivity, but an experience that you can pull from if you ever need to. So that program is no longer running in the background, creating, supporting, limiting beliefs or self-sabotage or space of lack and scarcity. It's something that now becomes a supportive empowerment. That is something that you have processed through, but you are not stuck in redoing over and over again. Think about your soul patterns. What soul patterns did you come to learn in this life, and how are you still working through some of those patterns that may not even been yours to begin with? They may be you chose, your lineage, and they become a part of your generational ancestral patterns. And how are you affected by those patterns, and what needs to then be completed so that those patterns can be, and their purpose can be finished and completed, so that they're no longer active, but they become an inactive part of experience. What have we learned? Oh, always a hard question. It is. It is a hard question, but it's a beautiful question because everything gives you something. Now, how you interpret that, how you perceive that, well, that is the lens that you're working through, the lens that is creating for you. And that's not to take away from the really shitty, horrible things that people have gone through or been faced with. Like, it's not taking away that experience from anybody and saying, oh, it's just a learning experience. I'm not putting it in that tone, because I don't want to, take away from those experiences, because those are not fun. However, to take the power away from those experiences that continually shape you, perhaps in a direction that isn't where you want to be at the end of the day, is stepping out and becoming the observer and the witness of it, and finding your flow to unattach to reliving it each and every moment of your day, or having the influence of that experience putting pressure on how you react and respond to yourself and the world around you, and taking a learning moment from that. How did this make you better? What can you process through that is going to help you self-evolve, self-growth? And it can be something simple, like maybe, or very, very profound. maybe, what, this is just not how I'm going to treat other people because you were treated differently, and choosing not to treat other people that way and not giving those people who treated you poorly the power of influence over you so that it dictates how you treat other people. It's personally, I think that's one of the biggest FUs you can give to somebody. You know what? You treated me poorly and I don't accept that and I don't condone that. And I'm not saying it's okay. And you have to have your moment of like, enough's enough, and you stand up for yourself. I'm not saying just take it. But at the end of the day, they don't get to choose or influence how you treat somebody else in the world unless you allow that, unless you're stuck there, right? Maybe you want to treat somebody poorly, then you're like, ha, that's, that's your soul journey, right? That's going to be something you have to process through. Or maybe it's a profound moment where you have to get that aha, like, aha, that's it. For me, my aha moment, I had one of those the other day. Well, I was actually mirrored back and somebody else had it for me, was that I hold on to things even when things are not serving me. And I know where this comes from. I know where my family history this comes from because I thought about it the other night. I was sitting down reflecting on this because it has been a complete pattern. I do that with people. That's where I do it in my life. I don't do it with inanimate objects like the person. I know where this comes from. Like I definitely see how I was influenced. It's on my maternal side. I do it with people. And so looking back at that, I kind of laughed. I'm like, okay, this is a learned behavior, but I also think it's a pattern that my soul has come back to unwind and finally complete that experience. So that experience is now an experience, and I understand, the neutrality of that side of life, and can for like, in a place of like choosing myself and what's, really better for me versus sacrificing the things that are like good for me to make sure that other people are okay. And I'm not saying I won't sacrifice for other people, because let's be honest, I'm me, but I can show a little more like, yeah, this isn't one of those moments where I need to do that. Or I can do it differently. And so that's going to be something I'm going to go through is, letting go, talking to the part of me that holds on to things that are no longer, holds on to people that are no longer serving me. But I'm going to use the word things because I think it will be a general apply, and then I will go back and talk to the part of me that holds on to people that are no longer serving me. So I'm going to do this in a 2-part process. And when this happened, I was having morning coffee and we were doing a FaceTime, and one of my girlfriends just blurted it out at me. She was like, this is what you do, because there are some things in my Cloverdale office that are changing. And in the past, I have taken on more of a role when I didn't need to, or like financial role when I, didn't really need to, but I was trying to be, trying to help out, trying to get the thought all of this with my, I know. Yeah, it's there. We learn a lot from our parents, and I've always said this. Like, my parents have taught me what to wear, what not to wear, and there's a lot there. It's a lot to unpack. But so she kind of like blurted this out, and I'm like, oh my god, I do that. And then this isn't the first time I've done it. Actually, I've done this my entire life, and I look back and I saw the pattern. And I'm like, oh my, and it wasn't a blind side. But I know I'm in that divine timing moment where it's now time to process through this, because as also I remember having whisper conversations with myself, like, kind of putting it in the conscious, but not really it sinking into the conscious. So it's a conversation that needs to happen this moment, but it's time. And with everything going on in the astrological world and our planetary alignments, I'm not surprised that these last little things have started to unfold themselves, which I'm, like I said in my TikTok, I'm super pumped about this. I'm really excited about this. I know a lot of people don't like it being called out and they don't like things like that, but I actually really appreciate it, because if I haven't recognized it, I need somebody to like put it out there. I may not deal with it in the moment because I need to do my process of uh, wait a minute, is that, does that fit with me? Does that, oh yeah, that totally resonates. Or, it's not really that, but it's this. And it just kind of gives you that inspiration to keep looking for something, keep looking and allowing the medium side of you, the intuitive, the cosmically connected side of you to have a conversation, an open, honest conversation, because it's the honest conversation is where those aha moments start to unfold, and you find the next piece of your crumb in your trail that gets you to the next version of yourself, that version of you. Because I truly believe, one of my mentors used to say that if you're not, you need to be fully healed in order to help people. But I'm not, this isn't like a healing thing, but this is a self-betterment kind of process. I healed my pain and my trauma, and there's still little things that are sidebars to those influential years that aren't traumatic or trauma, but they're like, hey, you have an opportunity to evolve here, so that that shift in attachment can be now released, so that when you move forward into the next phase of your journey, the next chapter unfolds itself, that process is complete, that healing is done. And that was my dad calling. He's upstairs. He doesn't know I'm doing the show right now. Because we're gonna have to soak Ozzy's foot. So that kind of, when you get through all your big heaviness, there will be more layers to come. Maybe not as frequent, or not as dramatic or big. These could be, maybe, but they can create massive shifts for you, so that as you step into the next part of your day, your timeline, the next higher vibration frequency of you, the old patterns that maybe not even yours, but they're generational and ancestral and lineage patterns, or the learned behaviors that aren't part of your core value but seem to have been adopted, can now be released, so that your inner core becomes the creative and the space of creation in your physical reality. So you create from the center of you versus the outer layers of you that are naturally influenced by your parental figures, by your family members, by your friends, by your experiences, by your everyday life, by your work relationships, by strangers that you experience on the road. Like, there's a lot of influence, and we are very imprintable, especially when we're 0 to 7, 0 to 8, but also in our teenage years, and also in our young adult years. And even as we grow, we do get imprinted upon. Now, how we carry those imprints and how those imprints carry us, depending on where you're at in life, well, they may just be a moment in time. They may be something you take on for a lifetime. It just all depends where you're at in your self evolution and self knowingness. So that is what I wanted to talk about tonight, is sitting back and looking back. Is there some outer layers that are still there? Some patterns that are not necessarily helping me grow and evolve where I want to grow and evolve, but kind of keeping me stuck or stagnant in a space that I'm ready to move out of. That doesn't mean you can't appreciate that moment. Doesn't mean you have to celebrate that moment. You can't celebrate those moments, because I really truly think you can, because they become, like I said, a learned experience, purpose, finish, and a part of an inactive experience filing cabinet that our soul has as their soul history, as our light body history, that we can draw upon when needed, but it's not actively running in the background influencing us now in our present incarnation. And that can come from childhood, that can come from our teenagers. There's going to be a lot. It doesn't just need to have to be past lives or different universes or dimensions or timelines, or realities. It can be something in this life that has been adopted, absorbed, and now, become your own, that overshadows the core of who you are and your core light of creation. Or it can be something that you created, right? And that through an experience, and that you've held on to, but maybe it's time to shift. And like I said, sometimes it's not the big trauma thing. Sometimes it's little things that just kind of influenced an impression, had an impression upon you, that had an emotional impression upon you, which then helped you form a physical, concrete part of your reality and self. So, and nothing is unchangeable. It just depends on whether or not you want to change it and want to do the work to change it, because that's the other side of this. I know a lot of us want the magic button and to just done, but sometimes We have to go through things to have the magic button that allows those things to be done, but we have to do a little bit of work alongside of it. And that's one thing when you talk about, doing the shop talk with hypnosis and the hypnosis talk with Becky and Jen and stuff, and really starting to, this process is a process. And yeah, sometimes you can have profound, massive change in one session. And sometimes it's soft change that you don't even notice, but totally influences your everyday life and for the better. But it's the choice to do it all, to stay in that connection of self-evolution, self-growth, self-transformation, and recognizing when it's a time to rest and it's a time to dig in. And when things are there, are you ready? Is this mine? Is this, where does this sit with me? And really getting into an everyday space of asking yourself questions. Where am I at today? Who am I today? Who do I want to be? And at the end of the day, who was I? And how did those three questions line up? And where did they line up with your positive statement of creation that you are working towards creating and bringing into your physical reality? And do they line up with that positive statement of creation? And if they don't, where don't they line up, and where don't they line up within you, and what emotions come forward, what pieces come forward, what parts come forward, and are you ready and willing to work through those pieces, emotions, and parts to help the door of that flow of creation, that positive statement, really take a tangible download into this physical reality? And if not, that's perfect. But if so, then what process resonates with you? And how are you going to make your plan, make your action plan? What person, maybe you're going to do it all on your own. That's perfect. I did a lot of mine on my own, but I did have people that were there that when I needed to be a client, I could go and be like, I just need to be a client. So I need to shut off my hey, therapist brain or self-healer brain. And I just need to be there. So, and find your modality, find your people. And when you're ready, dive in and see where it takes you. And let go of all expectation, because the flow will happen, but you need to let go of the expectation of how that should look and how it's going to work and what it's going to do. Because again, that gets into a space of lack or scarcity because we're trying to control it. And really our job is to observe and move through it and see what it teaches us, how it helps us evolve and grow and transform, and what hidden synchronicities are a part of that are giving us the golden nuggets to now create with and unlock. So I hope that was a kind of a heavy Friday, but that's okay. Coffee was good, I hope. And I hope that you guys are going to have an amazing weekend. I want to thank you for being here. We will be live on Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with Meditation Monday. We're going to keep diving into that tangible life force and connecting with that tangible life force, because I truly believe the more we become aware of our life force, the more we can find the frequencies and vibrations that are hindering and holding and having, not in alignment with our highest vibration and frequency. So we're going to start at the core of things. We're going to work our way out and what that looks like, and the emotional layer versus, and then into the physical layer. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Heavy but needed. That's you know what? Sometimes that's right. You're right. Heavy and needed. Sometimes we have to have these heavy conversations. I believe in having the hard conversations, because once you have them, you can see what doors that opens for the next part of, again, evolution, self-growth, self-transformation, self-healing. Even if it's just those heavy conversations with yourself or with somebody that you need to have them with, because not all heavy conversations are bad. Sometimes things need to be talked about so that you guys can move forward in a different space. So we will Monday be working with the life force, and then we'll be back at it next week. So have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy. Remember, you've got this. You're worth it. Make time for yourself. Where are you sitting? That journal. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And at the end of the day, who was I today? And how does that line up with my positive affirmation statement? Remember those positive affirmation statements, writing them out for longer than 17 seconds helps create that connection to more thought and more flow. And that way you get back into that space of creating from that positive statement, and you begin to activate and direct that law of attraction, which is vibration and energy. But making sure, noticing how that positive statement, when saying it, when writing it, how you actually feel about it. What does it make you? What part of your senses get activated? All right. Because that can be a very, very good telling moment of what may be standing in your own way that is preventing the flow of the universe sending them back to you and helping you create it this tangibly in this physical reality, or move into a different physical reality where you have that another timeline. So, all right. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. I hope that you have a great one, and we will see you soon. See you Monday. And yeah, just enjoy the weekend. You got this. Cheers.